honestly. So little things that upset me today.
I wonder whose phone that is.
I just brought it in from the other room. I think it's Tom's.
Oh, then I'm gonna sit over there. This camera makes me nervous.
Not like that.
I didn't sit over there before. I saw that phone. I see somebody was sitting there.
In the head.
I don't want to take any chances.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah. Miss you this afternoon.
One out of two.
Oh, I have to get you a copy of it. I have to get you a copy of it.
Yeah, it's, what, are we going on to the networks now? We're gonna have Jim.
I think so. We're gonna get there eventually. I'm just doing this one, the language of the heart
Hi, I'm Tracy.
on video.
What about the one that, with our sponsorship meeting this afternoon? You recorded?
Okay, guys, shall we begin?
Are you playing?
That's what he's got.
My name is Jim. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jim.
Everybody, and I'm glad to be here and glad to see all of you here. This is the regular Saturday meeting of the Stairway Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is our Language of the Heart meeting. Please join me in a moment of silent meditation. We'll say the surrender prayer together. Thank you. Surrender prayer. God, grant me the serenity
To accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen. And Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, and they solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting to our own contributions. And AA is not allied to any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, nor wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober, help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Tonight we're going to be studying and discussing an article written by Bill in 1961 entitled This Matter of Honesty. We find it on page 259 in Language of the Heart. Before we begin with what Bill wrote, it's important for us to kind of ground ourselves in this whole business of honesty. And we do that by turning first to the big book. On page 58 in the big book, it tells us this. Second line, first paragraph. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. Now it's very important that we understand the distinction here. The big book is talking about an impediment to recovery as being the unwillingness or the incapacity for self-honesty. In other words, that we have been dealing with self-delusion, and we have been dealing with all of the other aspects of that, which include denial and rebellion and defiance and rationalization. And that we're not going to recover unless we can find a way to be honest with ourselves. There are such unfortunates, they're not at fault, they seem to have been born that way. They're naturally incapable of grasping and develop a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. Then, the other side of the coin, there are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders. But many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. From this, we must see a very specific message that shines through. That this matter of self-honesty is a bottom line matter. It's a sine qua non of recovery. Without it, we don't recover. And we find out when we are working our 4-step and our 5th step just how far away from self-honesty some of us have fallen. With that in mind, then, we should differentiate between self-honesty and what they sometimes call around here cash register honesty. They talk about this being an honest program, but it's important to understand that the honesty which is utterly essential is honesty with self. And it may very well be that we will not drink if we habitually are dishonest with others, but we will definitely drink if we are habitually dishonest with ourselves. We're unable or unwilling to recognize what's going on with us. So we look on page 259. The problem of honesty touches nearly every aspect of our lives. There are, for example, the widespread and amazing phenomena of self-deception. There are those rather dreadful brands of reckless truth-telling, which are so often lacking in prudence and love. Then there are those countless life situations in which nothing less than utter honesty will do, no matter how sorely we may be tempted by the fear and pride that would reduce us to half-truths or inexcusable denials. Now, Bill is touching on some very important things here. First of all, when we look at dishonesty, as we work our 4th step and our 5th step, it's going to become crystal clear that we are never dishonest unless we are afraid of the results of being honest. If it were not for that fear, there would be no impetus to be dishonest. And then there's the other side of the coin, which is this brutal honesty. And sometimes we can kid ourselves into believing that it's for her own good, or if somebody doesn't tell her the truth, she'll never know it, and this kind of stuff. Sometimes it may be true. But there are many times when this kind of unsolicited honesty is very harmful and very hurtsome. And we find these in particular when we look at our 9th step, don't we? In our 9th step, we are told flat out that if honesty is going to be harmful to another person, we may not do it. Because it's a spiritual principle involved here. We're not permitted to do anything to harm another person, even if it is to save our own necks. Let's go back on page 60 now, right top of page 4 lines down. Let's first see what self-deception can do to one's integrity. And by the way, it's a saying which I thoroughly and totally believe, that if you can say about a person, he has integrity, you don't need to say another word. If you say about a person, he has no integrity, you don't have to say another word. By that we know them. Let's see what self-deception can do to one's integrity. Well remembered is the comfort I used to take from an exaggerated belief in my own honesty. My New England kinsfolk had thoroughly taught me the sanctity of all business commitments and contracts. They insisted that a man's word is his bond. I delighted in the Lincoln story, which tells how Honest Abe once walked 6 miles to return the 6 pennies he had overcharged a poor woman at his grocery. After this rigorous conditioning, business honesty always came easy and it stayed with me. Even in Wall Street, where I landed years later, I never flim-flammed anyone. However, this small fragment of easy won virtue did produce some interesting liabilities. I was so absurdly proud of my business standards that I never failed to whip up a fine contempt for those of my fellow Wall Streeters who were prone to shortchange their customers. This was arrogant enough, but the ensuing self-deception proved even worse. My prized business honesty was presently converted into a comfortable cloak under which I could hide the many serious flaws that beset other departments of my life. Being certain that this one virtue, it was easy to conclude that I had them all. For years on end, this prevented me from taking a good look at myself. This is a very ordinary example of the fabulous capacity for self-deception that nearly all of us can display at times. Moreover, the deception of others is nearly always rooted in the deception of ourselves. Now, you notice that? That's a very important statement, isn't it? The deception of others is almost always rooted in the deception of ourselves. I guess you could say it in the vernacular that I told the lies for so long I began to believe them. And when you do a lot of 12-step work, you see that all the time. And finding and helping a person break that down so that they're no longer deceiving themselves but looking at the truth about themselves is a major challenge sometimes. Going on page 260. As further illustrations, two extreme cases come to mind. One shows self-delusion in a very obvious form, obvious that is to all but the victim himself. The other depicts a more subtle brand of self-delusion from which no human being can be entirely exempt. One of my good friends used to be a safecracker. He told me this revealing tale. Said he, "You know, Bill, I used to think I was kind of a one-man revolution against society. All over the world I could see the have-nots taking it from the haves. It seemed very reasonable. After all, those damned haves just wouldn't share their wealth. The revolutions that took it away from them were apt to get a lot of applause. You know, it's kind of like the Robin Hood theory. But guys like me who could also make those haves share their wealth got no such glad hand. After a while I figured this out. The plain fact was that nobody liked burglars. Revolutions, yes, but burglars, no. Anyway, I couldn't see anything wrong about blowing safes except in getting caught. Even after years of jail, I still couldn't see it. When AA showed up, I slowly began to get through my head that there were good revolutions and bad ones. Bit by bit, it dawned on me how I'd completely fooled myself. I could see that I had been pretty crazy. How I could have been that dumb, I'll never be able to explain any other way. I have another AA friend, a good and gentle soul. He recently joined one of the great religious orders, one in which the friars spend many hours a day in contemplation. So my friend had plenty of time to take his inventory. The more he looks, the more unconscious self-deception he finds, and the more astonished he becomes at the elaborate and devious excuse-making machinery by which he had been justifying himself. He has already come to the conclusion that the prideful righteousness of good people may often be just as destructive as the glaring sins of those who are supposedly not so good. So he daily looks inward upon himself and then upward toward God, the better to discover just where he stands in this matter of honesty. Out of each of his meditations there always emerges one dead certainty, and this is the fact that he still has a long way to go. Now, just a reminder that on page 86, if you want to open up your book to that, on a daily basis we're going to do something which fits right in with this. Top of page 86, 5 lines down from the top. When we retire at night, we constructively review our day. Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? So this is something that we're going to be taking a look at in our 11th step every single day. That's enough from this for right now. We can finish it up in another meeting. Who would like to share on this question of honesty, please?
My name's Warren, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Warren.
Glad to be here. Interesting meeting. I have a tendency, one time I remember back that I knew what the question was going to be, and I flat out chose a lie answer, and I knew going in it that I was going to lie. And I did, and I regretted it. But that's one problem. But the problem that I have generally is that I answer questions so quick that I end up maybe not intentionally lying, but a lie comes out before I really even know what the question is or give a chance to think about what the answer should be. And the example would be that I got caught in a hearing regarding some problems at work, and I answered questions so fast that I didn't even know what the answers, what correct answers would be, and when played back on the tape recorder, I go, holy shit, I didn't say that, did I? And so one thing I have to do is slow down and find out what the question is before I answer it. And that's always a problem with me. I get tied up in that rush thing, but all the things you said there apply to me. My first sponsor, a real good man, some of you may know, he passed away a few years ago, Gene Clark, a real good man, put on a big book meeting, and one of the things he said to me is you can only get drunk on a lie. And I guess indirectly that's basically what you're saying here tonight, and certainly applies to me. When I lie, my blood pressure goes up, I get tense, and it's just not a good thing. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Warren. Good. I think some of us get so accomplished lying or believe our lies so strongly that maybe we avoid the high blood pressure, but it takes a while before that happens. And then that stuff is really ingrained. Who's next now? That was good. Linda, you got something you want to say? I know you do. I can see the look on your
I'm
face.
just trying to, what impressed me was that cash register honesty, that part of it. Because I am a Yankee. And I was brought up that way. And everybody that knows me will say, my God, she's the most honest person in the world. And inside, I know that's not true. Cash register honesty, yes. I mean, I've been that person that I can walk 6 miles, but I'm the first one, oh, that's not right. You know, you made a mistake at the cash register line. But with everything else, I don't even know myself. I know I'm not an honest person. I do lie. I exaggerate to protect myself and to make myself seem better than I am, so that you'll like me, to impress you. It's all a big. I'm just starting to know myself now, my defects, and this is one of my big defects is that false pride in protecting myself and trying to be more of a person than I really, really know I am. I've never really looked at myself until I've come into this program. The steps are helping me realize these defects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you for being here.
You want to turn the timer? Thank you. Yes.
I'm Catherine, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Kathy.
I think, I always took rigorous honesty to mean what we've been talking about more, that I don't lie. And I'm not saying that I believe that that's not what it means, but I don't think I completely understood how much more it means rigorous honesty within myself. And I think a result of that rigorous honesty will be I will not be as prone to lie outwardly after I become more honest with myself, which is extremely difficult. It's real hard to look in there and shine that light in there and admit, if nothing else, admit to yourself some of the falsehoods. And when I was drinking, I really started to believe a lot of what I said. I mean, I just had to. I had to create the illusion that it was real to just hold myself together after a while. It was the only thing I had left was the lies that were kind of gluing me together. And I do feel that in sobriety, I mean, I know I have a long ways to go, but the relief of not having to live that way is tremendous. And the only way that I've even gotten the little that I have now is by becoming willing to look within and to see what needs, my defects and so on, and to be willing to do something about it. And not being able to do it well every day, but coming back time and time again and realizing and making those amends as I need to and being honest.
Good, thank you.
Hi, I'm Alex. I mean, one thing that was kind of on my mind is that I believe there are many levels, many shades of honesty. And, you know, as time goes on, you know, I'm still okay with some levels of dishonesty. I know that sounds really thick, but, you know, I'm not giving myself a hard time. You know, the bottom line of it all is I am true to myself, and there are still some levels of dishonesty that I'm okay with. You know, I need to have more of a look at myself on that, but, you know, it might seem quite confusing what I'm saying, but I just, you know, need to just get that off my chest.
Well, that's good, but could you describe these levels in some way?
Yeah, right. Mostly thinking of, I'm thinking of work, business, you know, in my daily life. And, you know, I talk on the phone a lot and this and that. I mean, you know, so it's very intermingled with that of, you know, kind of exaggeration, dishonesty, or, you know, and, you know, I'm okay with it, you know. I mean, yeah, obviously I'm not pure, you know, I never will be, but, you know, I'm just that's what kind of went through my mind, you know. So, yeah.
Like the
So,
editorial committee, exaggerating the number in the beginning.
So the check is,
Right. Yeah.
my fax machine broke.
Yeah.
Doggone it, our computer's been down for 2 days.
Maybe electricity not.
Sorry, I couldn't get back to you, my dog just, very good. Yes, Meryl.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Mansell.
And Marilyn?
Hi, being in sales, this is something that I have to look for all the time because all my sales teachings have kind of taught me how to sway the truth or whatever. So that's why I am happy that I have this new opportunity because I really believe in the product and I don't feel like I'm telling people you're getting a really great vacation and not really believing it. But at the same time, you can't tell everybody everything. You can't tell everybody everything off the bat. Some things are just like, it's not necessary to say everything. Like it said in the beginning of this thing, it said, there's reckless truth-telling which often lacks in prudence and love, and there are times when you have to be completely honest no matter what, even if fear and pride keep from that. They can tell the truth because they might not bite or something. So I have to be on guard for that all the time in my industry and in myself. I can't believe in this reading it doesn't say anything about the word rationalization because this like seems like a perfect. Those paragraphs seem like a perfect description of what rationalization is. Like we want something to be true, so we figure out things to make it true when it's not really true, but we make it sound like it could be true. And this guy, he's like Robin Hood, you know, stealing. Like Robin Hood rationalized that.
Yep.
He didn't look at himself as a thief. You know, can rationalize anything. I'm sure that every criminal in the, you know, in prison rationalizes everything they did. Like, ask OJ, Nicole probably deserved it.
Did you ever hear my rationalization for why I was in prison for 5 months?
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's a pretty good one, wasn't it? You gotta sell the sizzle, not the steak.
Yeah, right.
You start talking about the steak, it's a grade B, just short of dog food, but they think that they're getting this grade A prime, right?
Right.
They all smell the same when they're sizzling. I know.
Right. Well, it's better to have a better steak, though, if you're, I mean, some steaks are better than others.
Wow, that's pretty profound. Yes, Tom?
No, my name's Tom, alcoholic. I was waving at that guy. I think the most honest thing I could have said when I was out there before I was working the steps was, I will hurt you any way I have to, anyway, to get what I want. And that was the most honest thing. I didn't murder anybody, but you know, I contemplated it, and that's being, I mean, that's pretty honest. I wouldn't admit to it when I was out there, but you know, I would hurt you any way I had to get what I wanted and not care. Until I hit, you know, I had to hit a bottom and realize that I was wrong. And I got all this guilt and remorse after I started working the steps. And then that's the nice step. Yeah. I was not a nice person out there. And that's pretty honest. And now I do things for different reasons. Not, you know, not just self-centered reasons. I do things, I want to get well, so I'll do things like to make amends to people. I'll do nice things. Not have anything, I'll do this and give you this, so you'll do, I mean, I don't have other motives, ulterior motives for doing something nice. Although I still do sometimes, you know. But I'm aware of it, and it's pretty remarkable, I think. Just being aware of it and knowing that I was that way, and I don't want to be that way anymore. And being honest with somebody else. Yeah, I'm glad I'm sober.
Yes, thank you, Tommy. And Howard.
Howard, member of AA. And this is a very interesting topic, and it brings to mind why I'd like to say when rabbis and people who would study the Talmud always had an interesting discussion in that they take a point and they worked in pairs, like the two of us, and you'd argue a point for 10 minutes, and then I'd argue the reverse side of the point for 10 minutes. So to let everybody always know that there's always two sides to every coin, but most of the times we only want to see the side that goes ahead and defends the position that we're trying to defend. And now that I've been understanding more of what's going on through the steps and learning about my development as a true adult, a lot of the things that happen as far as honesty, as I see it, is from years ago and being a little guy and really doubting the reality, for me anyway, that was at home in my house. And I think a lot of us have that as far as addictions. Whatever they are, they're causing a lot of fear and pain. And so, wait a minute, if we were abused, or if a parent was an alcoholic, or if we were thrown out of a house, or if parents were not home, these are inconsistent. If you're abused, how are you supposed to love your father if you're a girl, or your mother? And so, wait a second, it doesn't make sense. So we construct in our minds a fake reality, and we use our thoughts to be able to defend that reality. And as we get older, I think one of the real jobs that we have to do as an adult is to be able to cut the wheat from the chaff, so that we really understand, wait a second, that's what we did as younger people emotionally to survive. But now as we become adults, we're entitled to our own feelings, but we're also entitled to be able to take a look at the things that didn't make sense. And that's okay. We don't have to conjure up a fake reality around it. And that's when we can start to become honest with ourselves and see both sides of the coin, because our existence isn't in providing and seeing only one side of the coin. And I think that that really takes a lot of the pain and pressure away, because it's easier to be open and see both sides when we can also allow ourselves to be able to say, wait a second, there were a lot of things that didn't make sense to me when I was younger, and now as an adult, I have to be able to put them in proper perspective, and if I was bad or did something wrong, make amends. I am entitled to be able to have good things happen to me. I'm entitled to be loved. I'm entitled to be sober. I'm entitled to have a good job and a loved one and all that. And oftentimes I was thinking, at least in my behalf, who was I to think of myself as being worthy of such other things that others could have, but not myself? So I have to step back from that. I don't have to defend those false beliefs to be able to keep my home and my life in check. That is a very difficult thing because I spent so many years and so much pain doing all that. But I think I would believe there's a lot of that in all of us in trying to maintain a false reality, and that in itself is dishonest.
Well, Jesuit priests and Talmudic scholars have a difficult time accepting categorical imperatives, and yet we have to. There are a lot of things in recovery that don't have two sides. They have only one side. God doesn't have two sides. His principles don't have two sides. The principles are the principles.
Oh.
The application of those principles and the things that we actually do to apply them, there may be many different versions of that, but the principles are always the same.
Right, and I wasn't trying to say that. If I did, then I misspoke in that. The principles, I think, are beautiful in and of themselves. It's the way we try and rationalize it in our mind that there's always, if I try and present my position of being, I was right, well, wait a minute, there's a flip side to that too, where I could be wrong, but I don't want to see it. That's what I was trying to say.
Well, maybe you'd have two arguments, one saying this is a principle and the other one saying this is not a principle.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of arguments going around here. Because when we hear people saying the principles behind the steps, see what's happened there is they have decided that the steps are not the principle. And so they're going to define the principle themselves. The big book says that the steps are the principles. The principles are the steps. Therefore, there can be no principle behind a principle. That doesn't work. And the guys who made up those principles behind the steps are laughing in their beer about now. They never intended that to be taken seriously by anybody until it got published in the grapevine. They were just playing around with it. And half of the stuff that is now memorized is utterly irrational and totally contradicted by the big book. But nevertheless, you can make an argument, if you wish, that the steps are not the principles, that there are principles behind the steps which are the real principles, and if you're a Talmudic scholar, you can make a case for that. How does that sound, Howard?
I thought I was understanding.
Does anybody have any idea what I said? I do.
Sorry, that lawyer is coming out of the
What was it? Sine qua non?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What is that?
What?
Sine qua non.
That you said
Sine
earlier.
qua non.
Oh, sine qua non.
Yes.
Vulgarly, the bottom line.
Vulgarly?
It could not exist without it.
I always loved what a tangled web would weave when first we practiced CCC. And I remember my youth. Most of my lying was born of shame because I wasn't good enough, I wasn't big enough, I was too skinny, I was too this, I was too that. And I just created this whole world of lies and deception. I became a flim-flam man, a scam artist, and all that. I was real good at it. And it was all based in dishonesty, and I just lived my whole youth in dishonesty. And in sobriety, sobriety, when I had to give that all up and just take a look at who I really was and what I really was and who those around me really were, those that I was ashamed of. I mean, I used to be ashamed. My father made $45 a week and raised 8 kids. The man was a freaking hero. The man was a hero. He was a war hero for World War II. My brothers were war heroes. And he raised
8 really wonderful people, and did not 45 hours a week. I mean, you know, that's pretty damn good. And I was ashamed of him. My father was the president of the company, and it was all deception. And in sobriety, I actually had to face all the deceptions that I had created along the way. And in letting go of that, I found freedom in the truth. It was, I didn't have to lie about it anymore. I mean, I was actually, I could see where I could be proud of my father, proud of my family, proud of those around me that I previously been ashamed of. And in myself, the reality I created for myself, I mean, I can look back on my 47 years on this earth as quite a story of survival and adventure, and nothing to be ashamed of, really. And I also, I'm a salesman too, and I've always thought it was real important that I believed in what I was selling and be completely 100% honest. You know, I ain't selling nobody nothing that I wouldn't sell anybody anything that I wouldn't buy myself. And if there's anything deceptive in it, I don't want any part of it. And I sell printed material, marketing tools, brochures, catalogs, like that. And as of late, I'm looking at some of the other salesmen filling my head full of stuff like we're the best, and nobody prints better than us, and nobody's cheaper than us, and you know, and I'm going, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm believing. I gotta bring my product to sell it. And I get a fax from the machine the other day, and I'm looking at another printer that sends us a price sheet. It's cheaper than ours. I don't know if you saw that. It's cheaper than ours. And I said, well, how could this be cheaper? We're the cheapest. We're the cheapest. And I'm looking at one of the print jobs, and I'm saying, you know what? This is a little fuzzy, man. They're telling us we're the best. We're the best, man. And I'm starting to doubt what I'm doing. Is it deception? I guess not, in fact, because I believed, and I was led to believe, that we're the best and we're the cheapest. There's nobody better than us, and that's what I have to believe in order to sell it to you. I mean, what's the truth and what's a lie? It's my job. I don't necessarily believe in it, but it's what I do to make a living. But you have to pick what is it they say, you have to choose your battles? You know, this is what I do to make a living now. If I'm going to be so high and mighty, then I'm going to go find something else to do to make a living. But for now, it's serving a purpose. And as long as I'm honest to hear, that's probably the most important thing I can do.
Yeah, I always thought, Mike, that those who would not sell anything they didn't own ought to always sell Rolls Royces. I remember I went broke in sobriety when I was 14 years sober, and I ended up selling ballpoint pens with your name on the phone. Selling 100 pens for $135, and you got to have a diamond necklace along with it. That was a lot of fun.
You know, it is interesting.
It was a diamond necklace. It was uncut, but it was a diamond. Looked like a freeze-dried piece of pigeon shit as well. But you didn't tell him that. Anybody else?
I was just going to say as a last comment, it is interesting though that so many of us right in here as far as professions, and then the mentality of that is that you're in sales. I was, and you're in sales. Interesting how my dad was, again, I too was embarrassed that I thought he was such a talented person, and he was, but he had to, and I used to go door to door soliciting for him to get appointments, and he'd go out and work at night, so he was never home. And so there, how do you defend somebody who was so smart, but he was never at home with us because he was so I'm having to, you know, fabricate a story in my mind, and I am very proud of him. He too was a World War II vet, but he wasn't there for us at night because he was working, and that was the rationalization. That was very painful. But just look here how within sales, and I used to say to him at that time, and he would be able to do it in his mind, and I had a very difficult time being able to live with some of the things that he was doing, and yet I still loved my dad. So then how do you reconcile that sort of difference? He would be able to say things, to sell things, etc. And I always said to myself over here, I'm not quite sure if that's kosher, but that's how we were making a living. So that was my rationalization. And there's a lot of that that goes on in families with sales, I'm sure. But again, that's how we survive. And that's how the family makes a living and survives. Puts food on the table.
Thank you, Art. I remember when I was in a bar and I was drinking it this one night, and I was a lawyer there in Beverly Hills. This was a pretty nice bar. Bartender turned to me and said, "You know, you look like you might be in the CIA." And I said, "How did you know?" And then from there on in that bar, I was in the CIA.
You know, it's hard to believe that you're a lawyer and you lied about something, Joe.
Yeah, how about that?
Oh, yeah.
Let this circle represent the unity of our fellowship. Shall a moment of silence for those still suffering. And we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. Please remember, we don't say anything after we say amen. Thank you. Lord's Prayer. Our
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
See you next week. I shall.
What used to be the series Miami Vice. You know, all the pros have the person who starts
Oh,
up
good.
there, well,
Thank
they
you
get
for
all the coloring and the shading right, and then the others, the real
It's
actor,
very
is
interesting.
in their van because it's so hot they start to sweat. So they have to get somebody about the same size,
Yeah,
same
right.
size, same height, same
Right,
complexion,
amazing.
so they can get all the colors and everything, you know, sitting on the camera. So I took care of her. It must be
Yeah,
about
you
5 o'clock. She said, "Hurry, because I got to get to work." I said,
Smack daddy.
Memorial Hospital's ER, you don't hear too many people saying hurry because I got to get to work. Nobody. So we started talking, she told me what she did, and I got off at like 7:30.
I was there this
She
past
said,
summer.
"Like, you know
Went
what's going on along the river or
to
something."
Akron,
So I
we
did.
went to that
I went
hospital
over there,
center,
she
sent us to a
introduced me
meeting,
to
to actual meeting with our
John
actual patients.
Johnson,
It was
Michael
Michael was
Fulton.
like,
I got pictures with all those guys.
I used to like that show.
And they sent me over to,
Oh, well,
you know,
even
wherever they
more,
have the,
yes,
the,
but even more to Sister Ignatia, who was
18-wheel
the
rig that they bring with clothes in
the
it.
nun
Yeah.
that
They
worked
said,
in
"Well,
that
go put
hospital.
something on over there,
that
we'll
is,
put you in the scene."
responsible
Before you
for
do that, you
thousands of
have to be a
alcoholics
member of the
and
Screen Actors Guild.
She would take
So
the
you-
tomatoes.
oh, that's too funny.
It was too funny, so I joined it.
They
And
love
then
her.
I did it, I went to lunch with them, and then I filmed them in the afternoon.
Yeah,
This is
she's
what, Leon and Phillips was in
they're really,
that,
but yeah,
filming.
there's all kinds of,
And they had me just throw a
Windows and
football
stuff
out
with
there, and
hay and
you
all
know, back
that.
to drop one of the parts.
yeah.
And it got
yeah.
cut.
You ended up
It
on
got
cutting.
cut. But they ended up paying me and everything. It was like $50 or something. I guess they
I
showed me
mean,
out here. I'm not on the Screen Actors Guild.
You still got a couple of minutes.
It was just fun.
All right.
All right.
Do you have Paul on the list for this month?
Paul, how many's you got?
See if he's on the list. One here.
Oh, you what? I don't think so.
Oh.
Cause I only got one year at a time, so. No.
Put him down.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's important.
He's the official colors now, but it is really no.
Yeah, really, those books are confusing, aren't they?
You what?
The way they got this one, yellow and blue and blue and yellow like this. It's too like.
Oh, they probably had extra
Ink.
ink.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you could have mixed them together and made green or something.
Excuse me. San Diego Charger color. Lightning.
That was a good meeting.
That was fun, wasn't it? There were more people here than I realized.
A lot of them came in after you got started.
Yeah.
Always happens.
Well, the snowbirds are starting to come back too. You start to see the license plates already.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it'll probably even still
Well,
get busier on Saturday.
another month, we'll probably have quite a few more people when the snowbirds hit town. Maryland has 2 more minutes, then we start without it. That's tough love. You guys know that tough love is an oxymoron?
Sure.
Stop and think about it. Tough love. I guess that's why it's a common expression, because it really is an oxymoron. It's like satirical, maybe. I'm not sure. But there are a lot of people that take it seriously, that they're supposed to be rotten, nasty, and really tough with people, and they call that love. That's not love. Doesn't even come close to being that. It comes very close to being control, manipulation, the establishment of the dependency. The Big Book has it straight, guys. It tells us this, and it absolutely applies in this situation. That if he is to find God, the desire must come from within. We cannot force it. And every time we try to force it, we make things worse.
Jim, what about the person, say, who is persisted, continues to drink or drug or whatever, and always crashes back at the family pad or whatever, and now they're not going to let him or her do that, and so essentially they close the door on enabling them to be able to have a fallback?
Well, that's
Do you not
right,
consider
Howard,
that
but
tough
that's a
love?
wholly different matter, isn't it? To stop enabling has nothing to do with tough love. Stop enabling is something which is an utter necessity in most cases. I just talked to a woman tonight whose family's been enabling her for years. And every time she gets a week of sobriety, they buy her a car or something. They're killing her with their money.
Right.
All right, let's get started. This is our regular Language of the Heart meeting. My name is Jim. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
All right, everybody, let's say the surrender prayer together. Thank you. Serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity
to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, and they solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for a membership. We are self-supporting to our own contribution. And AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. I wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober, help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. We're going to waive the reading of chapter 5 tonight so we can get right into our Language of the Heart. We're going to be studying a portion of the article entitled Take Step 11, which commences on page 239. This was written in June of 1958. Before we get into the part that we're going to be studying tonight, just to briefly bring us up to that point, the earlier parts of this article deal with the necessity of working the 11th step and what happens to those of us who do not. And the main thesis of this first part is as stated on page 240. It says this in the middle of the page, third full paragraph. 12-stepping, talking at meetings, recitals of drinking histories, confessions of our defects and of what progress we've made with them, no longer provide us with the released and the abundant life. Our lack of growth is often revealed by an unexpected calamity or a big emotional upset. Perhaps we hit the financial jackpot and are surprised that this solves almost nothing, that we are still bored and miserable notwithstanding. As we usually don't get drunk on these occasions, our bright-eyed friends tell us how well we're doing. But inside, we know better. We know we aren't doing well enough. We still can't handle life as life is. There must be a serious flaw somewhere in our spiritual practice and development. What then is it? The chances are better than even that we shall locate our trouble in our misunderstanding or neglect of AA Step 11, prayer, meditation, and the guidance of God. And I would go even further than that and say that in my experience, when anybody has come to me for help who's been around for a while, the first question I always ask them is, are you working your 11th step? Or more commonly ask, when did you stop working your 11th step? And almost invariably, we find that that's the problem, because the 11th step is that critical in our continued sobriety. It's that critical in our continued growth in the program, and without that we fall back into untreated alcoholism and we get very uncomfortable, very unhappy. We have all kinds of difficulties and we don't know what the problem is. Going on, it says the other steps can keep most of us sober and somehow functioning. But step 11 can keep us growing if we try hard and work at it continually. Now there's a reason here for all of this, and it goes back to what we learned in the third step, that God will give us everything we need, and this of course includes those things we need for continued spiritual growth, if we stay close to Him and perform His work well. The 10th and 11th step, but primarily the 11th step, are the tools we use to stay close to God once we've had a spiritual awakening. And so when we stop prayer and meditation and inventory, what happens is that we begin to lose our spiritual fitness. And as that gradually fades away, sometimes not so gradually, we fall back into untreated alcoholism. Because the only hope we have, the only solution we have is to stay in God's pocket, to stay spiritually fit. Bill goes on to say this: if we expend even 5% of the time on step 11 that we habitually and rightly lavish on step 12, the results can be wonderfully far-reaching. That is an almost uniform experience of those who constantly practice step 11. So this is the main theme of this article. However, now Bill, is the part we're going to study tonight, addresses this question of God as I understand Him, or God as we understand Him, the question of the doubter and the question of prayer, and how do we go about this business of prayer as we find it in the 11th step. In the bottom of page 240, in lots of instances, I think that people find their first great obstacle in the phrase God as we understand Him. The doubter is apt to say, on the face of it, nobody can understand God. I half believe that there is a first cause, a something, and maybe a somebody. But I can't get any further than this. I think people are kidding themselves when they say they can. Even if there were a somebody, why would He bother with little me, when in making the cosmos run, He already has plenty to do? Now, by the way, that was Bill's problem, wasn't it? Remember? when we read Bill's story, he makes it clear that although he was not an atheist or agnostic, and though he did believe that there was a higher power, he could not believe that God would have anything to do with him personally. Going on, as for those folks who claim that God tells them where to drill for oil or when to brush their teeth, well, they just make me tired. We got a few of those around here, don't we? Especially, well, it's God's will that we have a relationship. And I love him. And I love him, then it becomes, he beat me up, but I love him. He beat me up twice, but I still love him. Okay. Going on, our friend is clearly one who believes in some kind of God, God as he understands him, but he doesn't believe any bigger concept or better feeling about God to be possible. So he looks upon meditation, prayer, and guidance as the means of a self-delusion. Now, what can our hard-pressed friend do about this? Well, he can strenuously try meditation, prayer, and guidance just as an experiment. And by the way, that's what Bill originally did. You know, in some of his writings, he tells about what happened, that he had learned to pray just as if there were a God. And I think that's exactly what he's telling us here. He said that when he did that, then when the miracles started coming and he could no longer deny they came from a power greater than himself, that's when faith came. Going on, he can address himself to whatever God he thinks there is. Or if he thinks there is none, he can admit, just for experimental purposes, that he might be wrong. This is all important. Remember when remember what Ebby told Bill? That the only requirement is that he be willing to believe. And we get into the 4th chapter, we find that same thing repeated 4 times. That the only requirement is that we be willing to believe, and that's the place where we can start. Going on. As soon as he is able to take this attitude, it means that he has stopped playing God himself. His mind has opened. Like any good scientist in the laboratory, our friend can assume a theory and pray to a higher power that may exist and may be willing to help and guide him. He keeps on experimenting, in this case praying, for a long time. Again, he tries to behave like the scientist, an experimenter who is never supposed to give up so long as there is a vestige of any chance of success. As he goes along with his process of prayer, he begins to add up the results. Now, this paragraph is one of the most beautiful paragraphs I've ever seen, which details the results of prayer. And I think that what Bill says here is true. If he persists, he will almost surely find more serenity, more tolerance, less fear, and less anger. He will acquire a quiet courage, the kind that doesn't strain him. He can look at so-called failure and success for what they really are. Problems and calamity will begin to mean instruction rather than destruction. He will feel freer and saner. The idea that he may have been hypnotizing himself by auto-suggestion will become laughable. His sense of purpose and of direction will increase. His tensions and anxieties will commence to fade. His physical health is likely to improve. Wonderful and unaccountable things will start to happen. Twisted relations in his family and on the outside will unaccountably improve. Even if few of these things happen, he will still find himself in possession of great gifts. When he has to deal with hard circumstances, he can face them and accept them. He can now accept himself and the world around him. He can do this because he now accepts a God who is all and who loves all. When he now says, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name," our friend deeply and humbly means it. When in good meditation and thus freed from the clamors of the world, he knows that he is in God's hand, that his own destiny is really secure here and hereafter. Last paragraph on that page is beauty. In this lack of attention, I probably had plenty of company, but I do know that this is a neglect that can cause us to miss the finest experiences of life, a neglect that can seriously slacken the growth that God hopes we may achieve right here on earth, here in this great day at school, this very first of our Father's many mansions. Now, there are quite a few subjects here that we can address. How has prayer affected our lives? What is our understanding of God? Have we slipped away from working step 11 and had to come back to it? What are our experiences there? How did we get past this idea that God might not want to deal with us personally, even though he was the boss of the universe? Let's share our experiences with each other, and who would like to start?
Oh, my name is Tom, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Tom.
And I see when I pray and meditate, I grow to realize a bigger picture of what life is about, and what my life is about. I was thinking the other day when I was sharing one time, I was giving my lead, and somebody was making funny noise at the other side of the room. I guess he didn't like me or something. But that's all I focused on. I didn't focus on what the other people were, listening. I was carrying a message, but all my mind could just focus on the negativity, and it was horrible. And that's what my mind did. But when I pray and meditate, God lets me see the bigger picture if I'm willing to look for it or hear it, actually. That's all.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, everybody. And I don't really have a problem with meditation. I was taught earlier about emptying my head, and that wasn't a problem. I don't got much going on up there, and I'm not a very busy-minded person, and I like to do a lot of things, and so emptying my head was not. I do that daily, and I find I can do it even exercising. I don't really have to be still, but I like doing that too. When I do get excited, I'm so see-through, but it's cool because of the people around me that are serene at that moment, and I'll be bouncing around and thoughts and expression and words, and they tell us to breathe. And I'm really grateful. I've been blessed in these 2 years, and the things that I did different, and this time from the last times was prayer, and please in the morning and thank you at night, and that don't even mess with the thoughts and ask them to be removed. And I'm bad moods or something, and I'll go into a meeting, my sponsor sit down over there and write a gratitude list. And or do you help somebody, go help somebody. Things like that. And it's always been that way where, and you shared once about, well, you don't have to accept that this is how it's supposed to be, but accept that this is the way it is. And then sometimes, I don't know, I go back to the way it's supposed to be, and then you can laugh at like free will and self-will, because God's really going to have his will, and every time I fought it, I pay a price. Break out in cuffs and facing judges and wipe that smile off your face. I smile when I get nervous, I'm sorry. And what makes her up there on the bench, and how come I'm down here? But that's the way it went. And And so I choose not to go that way. This is a lot better. Thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, when we say the Lord's Prayer together, we say, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." What do you think we're doing? Are we giving God permission? Or are we stating a fact that His will is going to be done whether we like it or not?
But it only works on invite only.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that that's just a statement of fact. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thank you for your sharing, Jeff. Who's next? I thought you had an expectation book on your face. Marilyn?
Thanks, I'm Marilyn, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Marilyn.
No, it's just, I had a real trouble with prayer when I came back to the program because, when I was in the program before, I used to pray all the time. And then when my father got sick, I had all these prayers. I took out the Bible and it was just like all these prayers that he was going to get healed. I just was going to pray and he was going to get healed. So I kept praying over him. It was interesting too because he was 74 and while looking for more prayers, how I was demanding that God heal him, God showed me in the Bible where it said, man has 70 years to live. There's a Bible verse in there. And I'm like, no, God, I didn't see that, you know. But anyway, he died, and I didn't feel like I could pray anymore. I didn't feel like I could pray. I had been praying, and I didn't feel like he wanted to listen to me. It wasn't like I was mad at God. I just didn't feel like he was listening to me. I just felt like his will, he's going to do whatever he wants. Why should I pray? And so when I came back to the program, I had a real problem with prayer. It wasn't like I was mad at God. I just had to relearn how to pray again. And the first prayer that came to me was real easy, and that was, God, keep me away from a drink or a drug, because I knew that it was God's will that I be sober. And I knew that that idea didn't come from me, so I knew that that would be in agreement with God, and then I could definitely pray that prayer. So that one I felt real comfortable praying. So then after being around a little while, and I kind of attribute this to the day, I feel like I kind of took my third step this day. I felt like I could have a real mission in life if I could help others. So then I prayed, God, keep me away from a drink or a drug and help me be a maximum service to others. And that I felt was acceptable. I could pray that. And I wasn't going against God's will, and I meant it. So past that, I was having trouble praying on the prayers. It was like, well, God's going to want to do, he does whatever he wants anyway. Why should I say anything to him? And when the 11th step in the big book came, and it made it so simple how I was going to pray to God in doing the 11th step with the 10 questions. When we retire at night, we ask ourselves, were we resentful, selfish, were we dishonest, afraid? So then I write all these down, I have all these down on a piece of paper, and I look at them, and I read them, and then all of a sudden something just appears in my head. Like, yeah, you were selfish to Debbie, or you were resentful at Sam. So then I write that down, and then it says, after making our review, we ask God's forgiveness and inquire what measures should be taken. So then I just say, okay, God, what should I do about that? You know, I'm sorry, and what should I do? And he just gives me things. So it's like, it made it real, like, simple. Like, I used to think that prayer was so, like, metaphysical, and so, like, you had to have a feeling, or it had to be something like a feeling thing. Well, now it's just matter of fact. I ask myself these questions, something pops into my head, I figure that's God, I ask forgiveness, he tells me what to do. It's just like real simple. So I've taken it out of the transcendental or whatever and just put it simple, or just do this 11th step and he tells me things. And then also I had a struggle And my sponsor suggested that I write a prayer with this particular struggle that I was having. I was having a terrible struggle. I thought I was one of these insane people who was such a struggle that don't get it. And this prayer just came to me. And I believe that it must have come from God because it was just the problem I was having, and it was, the prayer was, had to do with wanting to do God's will, so I figured it must have come with God. So I feel comfortable praying that prayer because I know it's God's will because He's the one that gave me the prayer. Just like He's the one that gave me the idea to get sober in the first place. I feel comfortable about that. I feel comfortable about praying that prayer too. And I feel comfortable about doing this 11th step because He gives me answers. So it must be right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. I think all of us followed that.
I'm sorry?
I think we all followed that.
Did you? Did you not? Okay, who cares? I don't care. I did.
That's very good.
You did
Oh,
that,
thank
thank
you. Yeah, really, exactly.
Arthur, my man.
Yeah, did you? I thought he was making fun of me.
Hi, everybody. My name is Art, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, all right.
It's the first time I've been to your language of the heart. In fact, it's the first time I've had the book in my hand.
You bought it today.
I bought it today. A little encouragement over it. But I find it fascinating, just, been going over it, reading the introductions and some of the grapevines. I didn't realize that Bill had contributed that much to grapevines. But, in the years that I've been in the program, everything kept me somewhat sane. Not that I was all ever really sane. Was there left and stuff? And that's how I have to begin my day. I don't have a choice. If I want to have a reasonable day, I have to roll out of bed onto my knees and give thanks to God and ask Him to please don't let me have my will today. This doesn't work for me. This doesn't work. But back at the time, transcendental meditation was very popular on things. But it stopped with me. And I've been doing that, at least that style, for a number of almost 30 years. And it works for me. It's a format that I use. It allows me to sit still. Sometimes for an hour, depending on how busy I'm going to be that day. But I have always started my day with spiritual reading. Something spiritual. Generally try to find something that's AA literature, food day. But the quality of my day depends on how I start my day. And that isn't prayer. And I can tell you, on those days that I get so busy or I got something going on and I just get into the day, by about noon, my mind's like a plate of spaghetti, Like when I wake up in the morning, everything in my mind's just waiting to get into gear and pull me this way and pull me that way. But I can stop any time during the day when I recognize that I'm losing it and out of control. And just find a quiet place for 5 minutes. And it's amazing. There are times I'll get up from a business meeting. Hey, let's take a break. And I run into the men's room and sit on a john. Close the door. And just find 5 minutes of quiet time. So that part of the program I do pretty well, I think. At least it works for me. And, glad to be here. It's a very nice meeting.
Thank you, Arthur. I think you will find, after you read the book and digested it, that it is far and away the second most important literature that we have. And the material in this book you won't find anywhere else, anywhere, period. It's only here. Thanks very much. Larry.
My name's Larry. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah, when I sobered up, well, when I was a little kid, 7 years old, went to the nun school, and we used to put a little piece of paper underneath one of the statues in May. And what your prayer was my prayer was that my father would sober up. And so when I talked to my sister, who was a great aunt to me, I says, "What you put in?" That Dad would sober up. That's how much it affected me at 7 years old. And I came into the program, and about 3 months later, I had the opportunity to bring my father to a meeting. And that's 3 months sober it was. So, I mean, I didn't have an awful lot to do with, you know, it was on Mother's Day. And when I used to see him at meetings, I used to go to a meeting, I used to see him across the room. And I said, there has to be a God. I couldn't see it myself. So I had no problem with believing in a loving God that he gave my father back to me. And I think if my father hadn't sobered up, I probably would have fell by the wayside. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter, it's academic. But as far as prayer, meditation, a lot of times I would pray to him. I'd say, "Dad, I know you're up there, I know you don't want to drink. I'm having an awful time right now." And I used to, that's how I used to talk to him. The last 4 years I've been meditating, but not particularly, you know, the way it's laid out here. I try to center myself, center meditation, I guess you call it. And it has helped an awful lot. It has calmed me down, it has helped me with my anger, it helped me, you know. And since I've been doing the 11th step, the way it's best I can understand it is I started praying. And I just pray to, all through the day to, let me do your will. Let me do your will, God. And that's about, you know, I have no idea, you know, but I'm willing to forego what, anything I could come up with. And so it's mostly I've been consistent for 4 years, but maybe I need a little more consistency and discipline in what I do today. I feel that, in a sense, I strayed a lot from AA over the years. I've come to meetings every year, every week for a long time. But I didn't have the meat of this program. And you woke me up to this untreated alcoholism. That hit me right between the eyes. I said, God, I've been just kind of riding the coattails. And I was wondering why I was bitchy and complaining at meetings. And in spite of all the, you know, I used to complain about addicts. And I never had any of that stuff. I mean, I took some marijuana one time, but.
You counted Andes?
Andy Anders, yeah. I was a real critic. And I was in the same area you were in. I mean, they were none of that stuff around until after the Vietnam Korean War.
Huh?
And I mean, I just was too stupid to head that way. And anyway, I'm kind of I've got a new wave of spirituality that hit me lately. for it. And every time I come to this meeting, you hit me today with chronic alcoholic. That's what I was, chronic alcoholic. I was too stupid to go to sanitariums, because I was all by myself. But I mean, they should have put me there. So, anyway, I get enough out of the length of the hat because I can identify with Bill an awful lot. I mean, he's, at 10 years sober, he's still screwed up like I was. You know, his ego was am I ever going to catch up? And even today, talking about the other stuff. So, anyway, it almost makes me feel that I'm still on schedule because, you know, anyway, that's all it is.
Thank you, Art. Ivan.
My name's Ivan, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
When we were reading Language of the Heart, there's a long list of attributes to prayer, what, you know, things that become apparent. When I first got sober, I was sure that God's will for me was to be happy, joyous, and free. In addition to being of service to God and my fellow man, that type of thing. But I didn't have a concept of freedom. I had never been free all my life. I had run on what everybody else had said and by everybody else's rules. And there was rules at work and rules at home and rules and blah, 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 and on and on and on. So I didn't know what real freedom was. I had thought that freedom was disobeying the rules. You know, it made sense to me. My 3-year-old understood, disobey the rules, you get free, right? No. But anyway, prayer and meditation helped with that. And that was kind of out of the garbage. And I didn't understand, I didn't have a concept of happy either. If I ate 1 Hershey bar, I'd be a little bit happy. If I ate 2 Hershey bars, I'd be a lot happy, right? You know, I mean, my 3-year-old thought so. And all the way up till I was grown, I went to Busch Gardens, they had 6 roller coasters, that damn thing. I just charged from one to the other one. You know, get on that damn thing, wow, wow, thrill a minute. It's not happy. It's a thrill a minute. It's entirely different. I didn't understand that sort of thing until I started doing a little prayer and meditation and getting insights into my own behavior and what life was really about, that sort of thing. 11 steps, fantastic. It really, really works. Sometimes I don't like the answers, but that's another case. Me and God will battle that out. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Ivan. Howard.
Yep, my name's Howard and I'm a member of AA. And this to me is a very interesting topic because it's a very difficult topic for me. Faith, meditation, and prayer. Yikes. I can tell you certainly, I have grown up Jewish, and in my family there was a tremendous amount of chaos. And so I think if I was to have a word that I'd put right here on my forehead, it would have been conflict. And that's what it was. Conflict at home, conflict about my parents not wanting to go to the temple together. Everything was conflict. And so the way that I've internalized a lot of that, I've not felt very worthy of a lot of things, and certainly not asking in prayers for things for myself. I truly didn't know where I was going, and you know, if you don't know where you're going, every route is okay. But when you do know where you're going and you want to ask for things, well, then you can go ahead and try and get them. but I didn't. I really didn't have a direction. I was the appeaser in my family between folks and fights and things like that. And I've just sort of been like a piece of wood, if you will, floating out in the bay. And that's really even up to this stage of my life. It's sad, and I've got a tremendous amount of academic accomplishments that I thought would take care of that. Hardly. Just as you were saying in the meeting tonight. That's why I certainly know the 12 steps are important to me, because they're great growing principles that I've had a lot of problems in my life with, and what I've done is I've run from them, whether it was either exercise or drugs or personal feelings of inferiority and low self-esteem. I've really not asked for things other than when I was in a bind and had to. My father passed away a couple years ago, and then my mom developed lung cancer. And I was praying, but it was always, if you will, asking for something. Then I started to realize, what about all the other times when you're just praying for being grateful that you're here and that you're alive? And I took that for granted. I really took that for granted, and so I've learned not to do that any longer. But this whole area of the 12 steps and prayer and meditation and faith along the way, I'm still having a tremendous amount of difficulty with it. And I know one thing that is for sure. As long as you keep staying in the batter's box, there's certainly going to come a time, like you were saying today, where the light's going to go off, where you go ahead and get it, whatever that is. I know I've options and a lot of means of trying to keep all this down, because it, to me, is very conflictual, and it brings up a lot of feelings of fear. What to do with all these emotions I don't know what to do with. And but I know just coming back and trying to do the best I can at the speed that I'm allowed to isn't going to come at all. And I just hope that things will continue opening up for me.
Well, thank you, Art.
Thanks.
I promise you that you will become unconflicted when you work the steps, because you will be taking leaps of faith. And each time you do and it works, you're going to say, wow, that worked. And pretty soon, the accumulation of evidence will overwhelm you, my friend, and you will no longer be able to deny that it works. And the program of AA is extraordinarily simple as a spiritual program. We don't have any ritual, we have no rites of passage, there's no nothing. What there is very simply that we learn to trust God, because we allow Him to be trustworthy. And we clear away the things in ourselves that block us from Him, so that then He has a chance to get us. And pretty soon, we just come to a point where we recognize that this is going on. And when you begin to have one God buzz after another, it'd be pretty difficult for an educated, intelligent guy like you to deny that that's what's happening. You might want to, but it might scare you. But after a while, you find out you don't have to be afraid of God. What you have to be afraid of is Howard, not God. And I don't mean Howard as the nice guy or the professional. I'm talking about self.
Mm-hmm.
Selfishness, self-centeredness, self-centered fear, self-delusion, self-pity. That's what we have to deal with. And when you look in the mirror, Howard, just tell yourself, I'm looking at the problem.
Been doing that for many years.
Thank you, Howard. Jeannie.
What Marilyn said.
What?
And what you said.
You mean ditto? You mean you actually understood all that?
Shut up. Yeah. I didn't say he was making fun of me. See that?
Go ahead. Is that it?
What Marilyn said. Because when I do my 11-step inventory at night, that's like a prayer for me. When I write it all out and I'm looking over my day and everything, I do that 11-step inventory, and if I have any problems that I had during the day, I know that I can pick up the spiritual tools. And I know that God will take me to better things the next day. And I don't have the fear that God can't help me to make it right the next day. And when I have that feeling, I become more effective and I become unblocked from God. And like what you said, then my faith starts to grow. And the more my faith grows, the more I can get up in the morning and I can say to myself that today I can trust God more than what I did before. And also, I just wanted to mention one thing, like we were talking about yesterday, is that 24-hour book.
Yeah.
That's a really good book.
Yep.
Because that can bring up a lot of things that you really have in your head that you don't know are there sometimes, or expressions that you wish to express because God is deep down within us. And that helps to bring us up to a lot of that meditation, I believe, brings a lot up to the forefront and helps to find those feelings in you that are there, that aren't as easily expressed through your own manner of thinking.
Good, thank you, Jane. What happens if you are not sorry and your conduct continues to harm others? What will happen?
You'll drink.
Okay. Where does it tell you that? What page in the big book?
Oh, I know. 80. No, it's not 86. I can't look, right?
Open book for sure.
Oh, wait, let me think.
Anybody know?
69.
Page 70
70.
in the fourth step.
In the first step, okay.
Find it and read it out loud so everybody can share in it. Top of the page.
Suppose we fall short?
Yep,
And I haven't.
of course.
Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and we will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience.
I bet you'll never forget what page that's on, will you?
Page 70.
Anybody got any irresistible impulses, otherwise known as burning desires? Okie dokie. Did we collect rent?
Oh, no. Thank you, though.
You're falling down the job.
I know, but we're, the more you give, the better you feel. That's my little ditty. That's the treasure.
The more you give, the better you feel.
It sounds a lot like the more you drink, the better you feel. It's similar, but.
That's right. That's the theme song of any good treasure.
Marilyn, did you take that baseball bat away from the gorilla? Is that really true?
Yeah, I'm looking for him still.
Marilyn's looking for the gorilla right now.
Yeah, really, I was looking.
You never write.
Silent C.
No, I could give you more.
Remember, Marilyn, you have a right to remain silent.
What's that?
You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say may and can be used against you.
Hey, listen, she got some out of what I said.
Oh, okay. Let's close the
I
meeting.
found myself, Gene. Yes, I am.
Dying from New York to Miami.
Southernmost, it's all the way down.
Yeah, just like 95.
Well, it's right, just my son. I don't remember.
No, just right to the little island, right to the end. Yeah. And there's lots of guys.
I met one of her sponsees last week.
Oh, we did.
In Marathon, do you know Dottie? Dottie?
Dottie in Marathon?
Yeah.
Sure, I know Dottie.
Yeah, she started talking about her sponsor, and my eyes lit up, and I
You
was like,
can't be wearing, you can't be
I read your
when you
sponsor's
go up to
book.
Chicago though, it'd be too cold to show those anywhere, so you're gonna have.
I don't know, man, it just,
It's
it's
getting
always
on
good.
It was already cold
I
and left.
can't remember.
Because I flew from Buffalo, New York over to Chicago for my layover and then from there down.
Yeah.
So I had a taste of both the cold. From Buffalo, New York. I only left and go to New York to take my kids up there and then from
And
there.
this is just the
over to
beginning.
Chicago. Yeah.
Marilyn, would you ask the others to step in, please, so we can get
Yes,
started?
I would love to.
Thank you.
I love, you know, I love telling people what to do when you love me.
Please, I know you do, yeah.
I mean, we are ready to commence the meeting. If everyone is time.
Bob, have you seen the 12 Steps for Christians?
Yes, I did. Very good. Thank you. I know I was bugging you for a long time, but
I've never seen it, Jim. Can I take a look at that? I've never seen that.
Pardon? You haven't seen it?
I've never seen it. You did this, Jim? This is yours?
Yes. All righty, let's get started. This is our regular Saturday evening Language of the Heart meeting. My name is Jim, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jim.
Buddy. Please join me in a moment of silent meditation. We'll say the Serenity Prayer together. Thank you. Serenity Prayer. God,
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. They may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. And there are no dues or fees for a membership. We are self-supporting to our own contribution. And AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, nor wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any cause. The primary purpose is to stay sober, like other alcoholics, to achieve sobriety. The primary purpose of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting is the teaching and practice of the 12 steps. This is our Language of the Heart meeting, and we're going to be studying tonight an article which Bill wrote for the Grapevine in 1961, entitled Humility for Today. You'll find it on page 254. This article contains one of the most vivid word pictures that Bill ever wrote. One of the most vivid word pictures we'll find in any of the AA literature. I'd like to first remind you that when you read the 12 and 12, you'll find that in the 7th step discussion in the 12 and 12, that the whole chapter revolves around humility. And why that should be, I don't have any idea. But we will find that as we read this article, which was written approximately 8 years later, it's all about humility, but it never once mentions the 7th step. And that's significant because the 7th step is a step which is a prayer. And that a prayer would, we hope, always be offered up humbly. It's also a prayer which is almost identical with the 3rd step prayer. Not the language, but the content is nearly identical. And the 3rd step, of course, is a step which we offer, where we offer the prayer humbly. So we're going to talk about humility today. We're going to read what Bill has to say about it. page 254. There can be no absolute humility for us humans. At best, we can only glimpse the meaning and splendor of such a perfect ideal. As the book Alcoholics Anonymous says, we are not saints. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Now, the reason that that was written in the big book is that the Oxfordians believed that once we had worked their 6 steps, we would achieve perfect humility, among other perfections. Our guys found out that that was not true. That never happened to them. Going on, only God himself can manifest in the absolute. We human beings must needs live and grow in the domain of the relative. We seek humility for today. Now, one of the things that we have to understand here about what Bill is writing is he's saying that the results that we obtain from the work that we do can be and will be relatively closer and closer to perfection, to spiritual perfection, but can never fully attain that. He does not mean that the big book and the steps are written on the basis of relativity. Quite the opposite. The big book and the steps are written on the basis of absolutes. If you read chapter 5 or listen to it carefully while it's being read, you will see that it tells us over and over again exactly what must be done. It tells us that half measures will avail us nothing, that the results will be nil. So we let go, absolutely, and on and on. And so what Bill is telling us here is that the results will be relatively less than perfection. But there is no reason why we cannot do the work perfectly. It's very simple, and we just simply follow directions. Going on now, therefore, our practical question is this: just what do we mean by humility for today, and how do we know when we have found it? We scarcely need to be reminded that excessive guilt or rebellion leads to spiritual poverty. Now, that's a really important sentence, because let's look at what's happening with us. When we come in here, when we come in the door, we're in a state of rebellion and defiance and denial. And we need to go from a place of rebellion to a place of surrender and obedience. Likewise, we are as badly off with guilt as we are with rebellion. Guilt is something which blocks us from God just as surely as our defects do. That's why we have a 9th step. It is in our 9th step that we are applying a spiritual solution to our guilt, so that the guilt is taken away and it no longer blocks us from God. But rebellion and guilt lead to spiritual poverty. But it's a very long time before we knew we could go even more broke on spiritual pride. Now, this is another extremely important sentence. The spiritual pride will be even worse for us than the rebellion or the guilt. The spiritual pride will block us just as surely from God. And as a matter of fact, if you think about it, remember when we get to the 3rd step, that we learn that it is self and selfishness and self-centeredness which are the root of our troubles. And after we've learned that, then we learn that we had to quit playing God, that it didn't work. And that hereafter in this drama of life, God is to be our director. He will be the principal and we the agent. He be the father and we the child. We have to do away with spiritual pride. And a big part of that comes about because we come to understand that God has all power and all knowledge, which leaves absolutely zero for us to be proud about. As a matter of fact, it turns out that about the only thing that we have any chance of being proud about now is that we can be proud that we've taken right action, that we've done the next right thing. And we can pat ourselves on the back for that, saying, boy, and I'll tell you why, because taking right action, doing the next right thing is an exercise of our willpower. The big book tells us this, that it is the proper use of our will. And so we can say, boy, I feel good that I did the next right thing. I feel good that I took care of what's on my plate to be done today. And I feel good that I left the results up to God. Going on, when we early AAs got our first glimmer of how spiritually prideful we could be, we coined this expression, don't try to get too damn good by Thursday. Now a lot of people have taken that to mean, and they switch it around, and what they say now is don't try to get too well by Thursday, which is a damnable excuse for not working the steps. It's a way of saying to people, well, for example, stay around here and stay sober for 90 days and then we'll see whether we need to start working the steps or not. Whereas the big book says that we start the steps at the second meeting, as soon as the big book has been read. That old-time admonition may look like another of those handy alibis and excuse us from trying for our best. Yet a closer view reveals just the contrary. This is our AA way of warning against pride blindness and the imaginary perfections that we do not possess. And you find lots of folks around these rooms who really do believe that they've got the answer, that they are spiritually elite. We have a lot of them that meet here at the 101. Matter of fact, right here in this little room. Never do they mingle with the hoi polloi out there. They have their own thing going. And I feel sorry for them. Remember what the big book says, that we stay on the firing line of life. Therefore, we avoid any situations which will become ingrown toenails, incestuous little groups that revel in their own spirituality and how strongly spiritual they are. These are the same people who will tell you that if you still smoke, you cannot possibly be spiritually fit. I feel sorry for them. Let's go down to the bottom of the page now, because we want to get into this wonderful vignette that Bill has drawn for us. How then can we do more and more about reducing our guilt, rebellion, and pride? When I inventory such defects, I like to draw a picture and tell myself a story. My picture is that of a highway to humility, and my story is an allegory. On one side of my highway, I see a great bog. The highway's edge borders a shallow marsh, which finally shelves down into that muddy morass of guilt and rebellion in which I have so often floundered. Self-destruction lies in wait out there, and I know this. But the country on the other side of the road looks fine. I see inviting glades, and beyond them, great mountains. The countless trails leading into this pleasant land look safe. It will be easy, I think, to find one's way back. Remember that each of these lands that he's talking about are on one side or the other of the road to humility. Together with numbers of friends, I decided to take a brief detour. We pick our path and happily plunge along it. Elatedly, somebody soon says, maybe we'll find gold on top of that mountain. Then, to our amazement, we do strike gold. Not nuggets in the streams, but fully minted coins. The heads of these coins each declare, this is pure gold, 24 carats. Surely we think this is the reward for our patient plodding back there in the everlasting brightness of the highway. Soon, though, we begin to notice the words on the tails of our coins, and we have strange forebodings. Some pieces carry rather attractive inscriptions. I am power. I am acclaim. I am wealth. I am righteousness, they say. But others seem very strange. For example, I am the master race. I am the benefactor. I am good causes. I am God. This is very puzzling. Nevertheless, we pocket them. But next come real shockers. They read, I'm pride, I'm revenge, I'm disunity, I'm chaos. And we turn up a single coin, just one, which declares, I am the devil himself. Some of us are horrified and we cry, this is fool paradise, let's clear out of here. Many would not return with us. They said, let's stay here and sort over those damn coins. We'll pick only the ones that carry the lucky inscription. For instance, to those that say power and glory and righteousness. You fellows are going to be sorry you didn't stick around. Not strangely, it was years before this part of our original company returned to the highway. They told us the story of those who had sworn never to return. They had said, this money is real gold and don't tell us any different. We're going to pile up all we can. Sure, we don't like those fool mottos, but there's plenty of firewood here. We'll just melt all this stuff down into good, solid gold bricks. Then our late arrivals added, this is how the gold of pride claimed our brothers. They were already quarreling over their bricks when we left. Some were hurt and a few were dying. They had begun to destroy each other. The symbolic picture graphically tells me that I may attain humility for today only to the extent that I am able to avoid the bog of guilt and rebellion and that fair but deceiving land which is strewn with the coin of pride. This is how I can find and stay on the road to humility which lies in between. Therefore, a constant inventory which can reveal when I'm off the road is always in order. Let's go over to page 257. Middle of the page, quarter of the way down. In those days, I wasn't much bothered about the areas of life in which I was standing still. There was always the alibi. After all, I said to myself, I'm far too busy with much more important matters. That was my near-perfect prescription for comfort and complacency. But sometimes I'd simply have to look at certain situations where on the face of them I was doing very badly. Right away, a rousing rebellion would set in. Then the search for excuses would become frantic. These, I would exclaim, are really a good man's faults. When that pet gadget finally broke apart, I would think, well, if those people would only treat me right, I wouldn't have to behave the way I do. Next in order was this: God well knows that I do have awful compulsions. I just can't get over this one, so He will have to release me. At last came the time when I would shout, this I positively will not do, I won't even try. Of course, my conflicts went right on mounting because I was simply loaded with excuses and refusals. When these troubles had finally exhausted me enough, there was yet another escape. I would commence to wallow in the bog of guilt. Here, pride and rebellion would give way to depression. Though the variations were many, my main theme always was, how god-awful I am. Just as I had exaggerated my modest attainments by pride, so now I would exaggerate my defects through guilt. I would race about confessing all and a great deal more to whomever would listen. Believe it or not, I took that to be great humility on my part, and I counted this as my sole remaining asset and consolation. How many times have we heard people get up there at the podium and start going through an entire mea culpa, and everybody in the audience, well, not everybody, but some would say, oh, thank you for being so honest. I always wonder what that really means. Like you've never been honest before and you're finally getting honest, something like that. During those bouts with guilt, there was never a decent regret for the harms I had done, nor was any serious thought of making such restitution as I could. The idea of asking God's forgiveness, let alone any forgiveness of myself, never occurred to me. Of course, my really big liability, spiritual pride and arrogance, was not examined at all. I had shut out the light by which I might have seen it. Going down 2 paragraphs, this is why I see humility for today as a safe and secure stance midway between these violent emotional extremes. It is a quiet place where I can keep enough perspective and enough balance to take my next small step up the clearly marked road that points toward eternal values. And then finally on page 259, I only need to dwell on the vision itself, letting it grow and evermore fill my heart. This done, I can compare with my last taken personal inventory. Then I get a sane and healthy idea of where I actually stand on the highway to humility. I see that my journey toward God has scarce begun. As I thus get down to my right size and stature, my self-concern and importance become amusing. Then faith grows that I do have a place on this highway, that I can advance upon it with deepening peace and confidence. Once more I know that God is good, that I need fear no evil. This is a great gift, this knowledge that I do have a destiny. As I continue to contemplate God's perfection, I discover still another joy. As a child hearing my first symphony, I was lifted up into its indescribable harmony, though I knew little of how or whence it came. So today, when I listen for God's music of the spheres, I can now and again hear those divine chords for which I am told that the great composer loves me and that I love him. It's a beautiful piece of work, isn't it?
He's a good writer.
One of the best he's ever written, in my opinion. Not so humble opinion, if you'll excuse the expression. So there we go. Who would like to start the discussion tonight? Brian?
Yeah, my name is Brian. I'm an alcoholic. This one little small paragraph that you skipped, I just for some reason decided to read it. When I meditate upon such a vision, I need not be dismayed because I shall never attain it. And that, to me, that's a feeling of serenity because he's just accepting it. He's just going with the flow. Mm-hmm. Nor need I swell with presumption that one of these days his virtue shall be mine.
Right.
It's just basically, if it comes to my plate, it comes to my plate. If not, it seems like he's in a very accepting frame of mind right here.
Yeah, that's good, Brian, yeah.
Comforted me.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because Bill wrote a piece called Vision for Today. And you'll find it as Bill sees it on page 317, in which he talks about having vision. Not that we are forcing or trying to force that vision to become reality, but that by having vision, we set into action the dynamics which will bring everything together. And he talks about vision, and he says this may sound as if it goes against one step, one day at a time. But he said it really doesn't, because one day at a time really means that we stop regretting and agitating and repining over the past and wishfully daydreaming about the future, but that we get to have vision for today. And it is this vision toward which we direct our lives as best we can. And then, obviously, we leave the results up to God. But he was concerned and that vision was very important for us to have. And I found it to be true in my life, and I like to teach that to my sponsees, that we need to have vision of where we'd like to go and what we'd like to be doing and how we would like things to turn out. And then we work toward that, but we leave the results up to God. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that vision Bill thought was very, very important. Who's next? Humility for today. Yes?
Hey everybody, my name is Susie. I'm an alcoholic.
Susie.
I like this. I like humility. When I first came out of these rooms, I was told that humility is one of the biggest things in this program. Knowing that I'll never be better than anybody else, no matter how much time I have in the program. And I really believe it. I believe that even with my 6 years of sobriety, I don't feel that I'm better than anyone who just walked out in the door. I mean, I might have a few more 24 hours, but that doesn't make me better than anybody else. And I think the lack of humility is what makes people go out and relapse. Think that they don't need the program, I know it all, I can do it all, I don't need a sponsor, I don't need the steps, I don't need the meetings, I don't need anything. I need to meet God. And then they program go out the door, and it's unfortunate. And I take this program very seriously. To me, this is life and death, you know. And I'm grateful I've never been in a jail or institution, but I've known in the 6 years I've been in the program, six people that have died because they had to go out and research. And I think it was a lack of humility, you know. It was, it was a lack of willingness. The higher power definitely wasn't in the life, unfortunately. But I know humility to me is a big part of it, knowing that I don't think I'll ever be better than anybody in the program, even with maybe a little more time than someone else, knowing that I have to always keep humility in my life and know that my purpose here is to try to help another sick and suffering alcoholic and never think I'm better than anybody else, and never, even if you feel like you're on a pink cloud, never let it get to you that, I don't need this program. I think that's what it is. People start to think they don't need the program, they don't need the higher power, they don't need the meetings, lack of humility, and then they go out the door because they don't need anything. So to me, it's like humility is a real big part of my program, but I think the higher power always has to come first. And then the willingness, humility, and remembering that it's a program that I have to help somebody else on a daily basis, and if I do that, higher power seems to have been there with me through some hot, rough spots, and know that he'll still be there for me if I do his will, and that's his will, not being selfish and trying to help somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Does anybody remember which step is the step where we learn the humility that we need to have? Yes, Brian.
Step 5.
Step 5, that's right. On page 73 it tells us that this is the step where we learn enough of humility and honesty and fearlessness as is necessary for us to recover, and it happens in the 5th step. Who's next? Roy, would you like to share with us tonight? How about you, Bob?
Oh, me. Hi, Bob. I'm an alcoholic. This reminded me of that old Jewish saying, which is, stop being so humble, you ain't that great. And I don't know, I have seen a lot of spiritual pride where people do get a lot of 24s behind them, and they prance around the room feeling that they can dictate to you exactly how, especially when they say things like, that isn't sober behavior. And, and I think that's wrong. It's okay to be cool on your stuff, but not in a righteous, just self-justing way. And I see a lot of that going on. That's it.
You would say that it would not be correct to say, I'm so proud to be so humble?
Yeah.
He just reminded me of something. It was a Jewish saying. He said, but it made me think of something out of the New Testament. That Jesus said when you fast, they fast a lot back then. And when you fast, some people would look drawn in the face and wear the scrubs, and so everyone would know that they're fasting. With the greasy hair, and Jesus said, "Go home, comb your hair back. You're fasting. Don't let everybody know that you're fasting. Comb your hair back and try to be as presentable as you possibly could." And it's just, that's humility. Like if you do something, you don't need to tell everybody about it. God knows, and if you can do that and understand that, how rewarding that is spiritually. So I have.
Well, that's right. I don't suppose it's ever too cool to walk around with a Xerox list of all the people you sponsor and what's going on with them and hand it out at every opportunity. That would be the...
Right. I'm David, I'm not gonna.
Oh, David.
You
David.
know, when I first came into the program, I had to eat a lot of humble pie. You know, humility is one of the big issues, one of the big things in this program. You know, I've seen a lot of people come into the meetings, you know, that's people speak, and then you see hear them out when they go outside. You know, I hear them, you know, what a bad attitude they got after they go outside. That's the key. And I said, they're supposed, you know, to me, when I go into a speaker meeting, I like to sit down, I like to absorb everything that I hear. And, you know, that to me, when I hear stuff like that, when I can reach out to another alcoholic, in the United States, we are responsible for, you know, the ones of us, when we got more sobriety than others, we're responsible for others to get their sobriety. That's why when they say we are responsible, you know, I had someone not too long, about 3 or 4 days ago, asked me to be their responsible. Sure, why not? I can be responsible. I just told him, don't call me after you had to drink, call me before you had to drink. Well, he didn't do that. He called me after you had to drink. And I still talk to him. I said, well, what'd you learn? He said, it's not getting better. I said, I could have told you that. You could have called me before you picked up that drink. You know, I told him, I said, you know what my sponsor told me when I first went to my first AA meeting? He said, what? He said, my sponsor told me, sit down, you don't know a damn thing. You just keep your mouth shut. Listen to what's going on. And he heard me when I told him that, like, he couldn't believe I was talking to him like that. I said, that's what you call hard love in this program. I said, if you want the program, you gotta want it. And, you know, today, humility and humble. Mostly, I learned my past experience. Pride has a lot to do with our sobriety too. You know, we have to chew our pride up a little bit. Because that pride always takes us down real quick if we don't watch it. And, you know, I belong to a home group. My home group, they are serious about their sobriety. They are serious people. And I got a grand sponsor and I got 2 sponsors, which is good. Because I like my grand sponsor and I got my other sponsor. And my grand sponsor asked me, he said, well, looks like you really humbled yourself a lot through these years. I said, yeah, I have. He said, why come? I said, alcohol brought me to my knees. I had to humble myself. I said, alcohol was killing me. You know, he told me, he said, well, that's being humble, ain't it? I said, yeah, it is, sir. Yeah, humility and humbling, that goes hand in hand, so does pride. It goes together. And our self-will. You know, don't do our will, do his will. Because our will, we tend to fuck things up and we take our will back. And I have to humble myself on that day. I gotta eat that on the pot. And, you know, I think back when I get by myself in my room, I go over the day. I said, who did I hurt? Who did I hurt today? Did I hurt anybody's feelings? Did I make anybody mad? Or what, you know? I go over the day and try to figure these things out. 9 times out of 10, I go over the day not to figure out what I did wrong. So in order what I did wrong, I gotta go back to point A and apologize for what I did, go back to point A, then I'll go back to point B again, and I'm back. But basically, what I'm saying, humble pie is a really big thing to me. That's what I include that thing, let me share.
Thank you, Dad.
Tonight, Randy, I'm alcohol.
Yeah, Randy.
You know, I was thinking about, you know, when I raise my hand and I have a need to share, you know, what are my motives? You know, what am I talking here so that I can get you to look and hear what I say and what I said is really good, you know? Or what are my motives like, you know? I need you people. I need you to hear what I have to say. I have a need for conversation. You know what I'm saying? Is that what my motive is? To get out what's in my heart and have it heard. And hopefully what I share, somebody will be ready to hear what I have to say and take it to heart, you know, because I know that anything I share and somebody gets something from it, it's not me, it's you that's ready to hear what I have to say. It's not what I said. If I always keep that in mind, you know, that helps me with that humble thing or whatever. And something else I was thinking about, you know, a lot of times, service is its own reward. I see, you know, I was over at the Lamb of God, and one time the guy cleaned up the bike room real good. He was looking for the attaboys from as many people as he could find. And he never got the attaboy he was looking for. People just can't give it to you. I don't care how good you paint your house and how nice it looks, and you know, and you're looking for that reward amongst people, you're just not going to get what you're looking for. So, you know, when you start getting to that point where you help another alcoholic and you find your reward right there, you know, you're on that road to recovery. That's all I wish.
Good, thank you.
My name's Roden, I'm an alcoholic. And every day that I go to work, that's, I have to remain humble all day long. I have a very tough boss who knows how good I am at what I do. Also watches me not apply myself and do the next right thing. And Marilyn, who is once my manager, knows my capability at what I do. And I have to humble myself not to respond to him, because when I do respond, it becomes a very negative response, and then a lot of the animosity and the tenseness, it becomes now not a good working atmosphere. So something that I have learned is just to smile and say yes and do it his way, because I tend to think that my way is the right way because I've been doing it for so long, and I have found that by listening to him and changing, that I'm reaping the rewards of listening to somebody other than myself. And something that's been very difficult for me these past 9 months back is reaching out for help. I shared, Randy was there yesterday. I shared that I feel like I have 2 days. I don't have 9 months. And I remember when I had 5.5 years, there were a lot of people that had me on a pedestal. And when I needed to reach out for help, my pride and my ego stopped me because of where people had placed me. And it wasn't until so many bad things started happening, and I thank God that I had the wisdom, I still have the wisdom to know the difference, that I was able to get myself back into detox. But I allowed my pride and my ego get in the way of my humility, and I should have reached out for help sooner than I did. And I decided that, and I shared yesterday, that I'm the type of person, I need to be hit over the head with a sledgehammer. Now, but this time I've been hit, the sledgehammer's still stuck in my skull. And I don't want to be sober and be in pain. And I said, I shared last night that there was something that I knew that I needed to do tonight. And to make that first step to help me to get out of the pain. And ask for help. And it's something that I've been putting off for weeks. And I'm just grateful that I did it. And that I got the response that I got. And everything in life seems to be a very humbling experience to me. This time around, a lot more humbling. And I guess it just takes, for me, a lot of pain to bring me to that point. I'm just grateful that I finally raised my hand last night and shared, not about being in pain, but know that I needed to make changes and finally have the courage to make that change tonight. And already I'm starting to feel better. I'm scared to death that now I'm going to have to start working on myself. Because I've done it many times, but as nervous as I am, and full of fear as I am, and that's the project that I'm on, working on my fears, I think this is going to be very humbling for me, and I foresee it being a very positive. I'm just nervous and excited, full of fear, but not a bad fear. Just scared of the truth. I don't even know how to explain it. Now I'm babbling, and that's one of my defects. So I'll shut up and just say thank all of you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Roberta. Michael, did you have your hand?
Yeah, I'm Mike and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Mike.
I heard on the radio, I heard a preacher say that inadequacy is false humility. That was a couple weeks ago, and I've been thinking about that every day. Now, I don't know much about humility, but I know a lot about inadequacy. To be honest with you, what we read tonight went right over my head. I'm not there yet, maybe, I don't know. The gold sounded good to me. To be honest. I don't know. But I heard a good example of humility last night in a meeting. A guy shared, he does air conditioning work, and somebody from a halfway house or something called him and asked if he would donate his time and his equipment to help repair an air conditioning system, a couple other problems that were at this place. And he went to the place, and it was a place he had gotten sober 10 years before. So he went there and he did his job and he left. He didn't tell anybody, this is where I went and got sober. He didn't say anything. He just went in there, he did it, he didn't ask for any money, and he left. And I thought, wow. I think that was my first example of humility where I finally saw a man. And that's where I'm at. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Yes, Linda.
Hi, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Linda.
Hi, Linda.
And something you said, Randy, sparked at the top of my mind. Something my sponsor had me do. It was an exercise in humility. And she had me do something, a good deed. She said, do a good deed every day, but don't tell anyone about it. It was the hardest. I didn't think it was going to be hard, but I really was looking for those pats on the back. I wanted somebody to know. And I thought, well, that's not hard. I'm a good deeder. But when I tried not telling someone. It was very hard for me to not tell someone. That was all my life. I guess I expected pats on the back for every good deed I ever did. It was very humbling. And I'm going to start doing it again because I got a really good feeling just sharing it with God. He knew. And there was the reward. And I'm going to start doing that again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, guys, anybody else like to share? Any irresistible impulses tonight? Yes.
One last thing. Bob alcohol.
Bob.
Isn't it the book of James that says to be like the rudder of a ship, that nobody sees you, but you steer the ship? That's it.
Okay, that does it then. Let's, oh, wait a second, we gotta pay the rent.
Oh, yeah, good thinking.
Man, I thought I came late enough on this.
And,
A true wax up you.
You're never too late with Marilyn being the
and, after we close the meeting, please stick around and help Marilyn put this room back in order. The spiritual elite will be in here in the morning. We don't want to have them all shook up.
We used to be one of them.
Well, I know you have. You still join them most of them.
No, I'm slumping with you, darling.
That's three of them. That's three of them.
Okay, did you collect all the blood money? Good. You don't have to send the hat around again, do you?
Can I share one more thing?
I don't think so, but okay.
Hey, you know, in this whole sobriety thing, man, there are no big things. It's all them little things. Our motives, our expectations, all those little things that happen to us throughout the day that get us struck. I mean, I've been talking to quite a few people that have sobriety and went out, and if you listen long enough, you're able to shut your mouth long enough,